Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, where you're listening live. You're watching and listening on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, as well as on facebook.com/wakeupcalldt and facebook.com/live-now-dt, all inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Once again, this is Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and I am honored and privileged to welcome this guest for the first time ever to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and that is Mr. Wren Baker. Wren Baker coming to us from North Texas in the Mean Green as the Vice President and Director of Athletics over at the University of North Texas, who has just announced recently that they'll be joining the American Athletic Conference, so let's bring him in. Wren, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great, Dan. Thanks for having me on, and I've listened to your show a few times, but as you mentioned, it's my first time to be on, so I'm excited to join you.
Well, and I appreciate that. I did not know that you had listened before, so let me preface everything by saying that means the world to me, and I appreciate the fact that someone as busy as yourself took a few moments to listen to the show, so thank you for that.
You bet. Always happy to try and learn any way that I can. I know you've been having some of the ADs on, so that's we're excited that you're doing that.
Yeah, and very excited to speak with you today about North Texas. But before we go anywhere, I do want to make note of the fact that when the announcement came from the American Athletic Conference, who I've covered since their institution, really 2012, 2013, when realignment was happening and whatnot, the American didn't have a logo, didn't have a name. The Catholic Seven had taken the Big East moniker and the logo and all of that. Within that time period, to where we are today, I've been covering the American Athletic Conference and built a relationship with Commissioner Mike Oresco. And then a few weeks ago, on my birthday, October 21st, news comes out from the American Athletic Conference. And not only does it happen on my birthday, but it's during my show live in the morning for Wake Up Call. So I got to make the announcement on my birthday. So all I had to say was that you timed it very right for North Texas to be joining the American Athletic Conference. You gave me good news on my birthday morning, so I'm going to say thank you for that.
Well, happy birthday. That was really, as we talked to Commissioner Oresco and everybody else, the American, everybody agreed that the sole purpose of the timing should be so that you could get a nice birthday present.
Okay. Thank you, Red. I appreciate that very much. I want to start with, we're going to go throughout your history and kind of Tarantino this thing a little bit, but I want to start with something that just hits me first and foremost, and that's Mean Green. When you see that, what does that mean to you? Who are the Mean Green? What does it mean to be green, essentially?
Well, I think that when I think of Mean Green, I think of certainly lots of tremendous athletic tradition and history, but really I think of a university that is very diverse, sitting right here in the heart of the DFW complex, that is a community over 40,000 students, and that all identify with Mean Green. It's something that is unique to us. It's something that our fans and our graduates, our alums, are very much, very proud of. For a long time, North Texas was just known as the Eagles, and we still do have an eagle tie, and our mascot's an eagle, but that Mean Green is something that's really unique about us, and certainly it stands out when you start going through the names of teams around college athletics.
Yeah, and when you see that logo and you see the eagle, you see the bird there, and then it's Mean Green. Do you ever have to kind of like navigate somebody through it when you say, well, we're the Mean Green, we're not the Eagles, but this is our logo? Do you think that, that's kind of a story you've had to tell a little bit deeper because the logo and obviously the moniker are a little bit different?
We do, but it's we see that as an asset. It gives us a chance to differentiate and stand out, above the crowd. And when you say UNT, which is something is a brand the university uses, or even North Texas, there can be some there's some confusion on exactly who and what that represents. Is it the region, right? But when you say Mean Green, anybody who follows college athletics knows exactly who it is. If I wear something branded through the airport, people will always say, how about the Mean Green, or go Mean Green, or whatever. So I think it's become something that really sets us apart and is unique from a branding standpoint. And the opportunity to explain it really just gives us a chance to educate people on the university and the athletic department. Probably the explanation we have to give the most, though, is that we did not actually take the nickname from Mean Joe Green. It was a nickname started when Joe was a player here. Our defense was really strong at the time, and I believe it was the wife of an SID who kind of started saying, "Come on, Green, let's get mean." And then from there that morphed into Mean Green, and that become a thing. And so Joe wasn't nicknamed Mean Joe Green until after he was gone from here and was at Pittsburgh. He didn't get that name until he was in the NFL. So that one people get a little bit confused on sometimes, just because Joe has such a brand of his own as Mean Joe. But again, that's just an opportunity for us to educate and explain something. And I always feel like that means people are paying attention and they want to know more. So that's a positive thing for us.
Yeah, speaking here with Wren Baker this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, VP and Director of Athletics at the University of North Texas. To look at the history of North Texas, what can you say about some of the alumni that this school has been able to connect itself to? When you look on the history of the Mean Green, who are some of those people that you really think should be known in the community that you feel maybe are pillars of what it means to be Mean Green?
Well, we have a ton of well-known and prominent alumni, but probably where the most unique thing about our alumni base is just the number of prominent and successful musicians that we have. We have one of the best music schools in the country. Annually we'll have students that have been nominated for Grammys in different categories. And so when you look at our alums, Don Henley from the Eagles, Pat Boone, Meatloaf, Norah Jones, the Eli Young Band. You can just go through a who's who of musicians from just about every genre, and there's a lot of them from North Texas. We have a lot of broadcast journalism majors, tons of both broadcasters and writers who are out in the market that came from the university. And then we have prominent alums in other fields as well. Dr. Phil is a UNT alum. So we continue to produce a lot of great graduates across. When you have 43,000 students, you have a lot of degree plans and a lot of different a lot of diversity in those offerings from an academic perspective. And so every year we have more and more successful graduates, and we're really proud of them.
Yeah, and it's incredible to be able to tell the story of North Texas here today for the first time on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, which means a lot to me. So for you came to North Texas and accepted the job of Vice President and Director of Athletics on July 29th, 2016. To go back to that point, what made you make that move in late July of 2016? What was it about North Texas that you felt like it was the right place for you in your career, the right time for you to come here? What attracted you to North Texas?
Yeah, I think it was first and foremost. I'm married to my wife, Heather, let me get this right, I believe it's 15 years. And we have two young daughters. They're 10 and 7 now. So they were, I guess that would have made them like 5 and 2 or 3 back when we made that move. And so this was close to home. So from a family standpoint, it was within 3 hours of every family member that we have. And we had moved quite a bit leading up to that point, and it had been some time since we were close to family. So when you have young children, that's always a factor. But then just looking at all of the things that the university had to offer here. And we've talked about a lot of those as we've profiled the university here early, and then what the athletic department had to offer. And what I saw was an athletic department that had almost limitless potential, and yet had a lot of room to grow into that potential. And so we hit the ground running. It doesn't seem like it's been 5 years ago, but we've built a lot of facilities and made a lot of improvements to infrastructure. And you look back over the last 5 years, and I think our top 4 best seasons ever in terms of overall winning percentage across all of the sports programs have occurred in these last 5 years. So we're very proud of that. I'm very proud of the success that we've had, not just in the revenue sports, but also in our non-revenue sports over the past few years.
And Wren, when you say that, when you look back at the last 5 years since you took the job, July 29, 2016, a little over 5 years ago, and then you said within these last 4 years to see the records that you've had with student athletes in your athletic programs being the best that you've ever had. Within your time period, seeing that rise and that elevation in athletics at North Texas, what can you attribute that to?
It's alignment, and you hear people talk about that sometimes, but for me, we came in, we did a thorough assessment, and we built a strategic plan that wasn't just my plan or even athletics at leadership or administration's plan. We had people from across the community, from across campus, from our colleagues of mine on the president's cabinet that were all involved. Let's build a comprehensive plan to get to where, and roadmap to get to where we want to go. And so what came from that plan was from our system chancellor and our regents down to the president, and ultimately to me and his cabinet, and on down to our head coaches. There is great alignment in where we're going, how we're going to get there, what the priorities are. And I think when you have that, it really helps progress go very quickly. Early in my career, I started an athletic program from the ground up. And people assume, that was a heavy lift, but really it was one of the easier jobs I ever had because everybody came in with that alignment and shared vision. I was recruiting people who were committed to doing things the way that we wanted them done. And then over the years, as I've went into more established athletic programs, I've seen how important it is to recruit people into that vision and that alignment. If you just try to force that, it just doesn't work the same. And so I think what happened here at North Texas is as we were coming in, everybody was at a place where they really wanted to improve the athletic program, to make sure we were providing a championship level experience in all aspects for our student athletes. And everybody was committed to do that. And once we had that strategic plan pulled together that had buy-in from all these different segments of our stakeholders, because they were involved in putting it together, we've been able to make a quick progress, and we're really proud of it.
Speaking here with Wren Baker, the VP and Director of Athletics at the University of North Texas. To go back in time, and we'll come back to everything that you've done at North Texas, but to go back to kind of your beginnings here from Valiant, Oklahoma, earning your bachelor's degree from Southeastern Oklahoma State in 2001, and then moving on to get your master's from Oklahoma State in 2003, and then you served as a grad assistant and then basketball operations assistant for Oklahoma State for the Cowboys, then under head coach Eddie Sutton. Bring me back to that time period where you got your master's and then immediately started working in athletics and had the opportunity and the pleasure of working with Eddie Sutton at the time at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, so you mentioned Valiant. So I grew up born and raised there in Valiant, Oklahoma. And it's a town of about 800, and I lived about 10 miles from town on 80 acres. And so, very rural part of the state, and certainly far away from any of the bright lights of college athletics, and wasn't necessarily something I was focused on, and really wanted to go to Oklahoma State out of high school, but I was a first-generation college student. Both my parents worked very hard, but they didn't have a lot of money, and so I had a full ride at Southeastern Oklahoma State, which is a smaller regional university. The alums there include myself, Reba McIntyre, and Dennis Rodman. So that's quite the eclectic group. And really, I had a chance there to get involved in college athletics. I was a student assistant for the men's basketball team, and I enjoyed that so much. I decided I wanted to be a graduate assistant, and that's a long story how that developed. But got an opportunity to work for Coach Sutton, and it was just such a wonderful experience. He was somebody who is, in my opinion, is one of the great coaches of all time in college basketball, and just learned a lot about how important it is to instill a culture, to recruit the pieces that you need to make a program, to define roles for people in your organization, and to sell them on the importance of those roles, and then hold them accountable for fulfilling those roles. And so it was a great experience. It helped me not only develop as an administrator, and I would go on from there to be a head coach for a couple of years in NAI, but so I not only grew as a coach and administrator, but I really grew as a person. I mean, he definitely was somebody who had high expectations and did not mind to call you out if you weren't meeting those. And so, I think I grew up more in that 2-year, it ended up being 4-year period after my graduate assistantship, but in that 4-year period than probably all the other years of my life combined.
And you went on there, like you said, growing up, then at age 26 in 2005, you became principal and athletic director for Valiant Public Schools, youngest principal in Oklahoma history. Just what you can say about that decision to move there in 2005 after working at Oklahoma State, and what it was like for you to experience being a principal and an athletics director at only 26 years old.
Part of the main reason for the move was I was getting married. Heather and I, were about to get married. She's from Durant, Oklahoma, which is also a small town, and so that took us a little bit closer to home. And those jobs, if you weren't on the court coach at that time, those jobs in college athletics didn't pay much. Now they do, but at the time they didn't pay a lot. And so I was really looking at how can I make a little more money to provide a better living for my family. And then Debbie Golden, who was my high school student council advisor, had worked her way up into principal and eventually superintendent. And so she just kept recruiting me to the job. I told her no a couple of times, and she wouldn't take no for an answer. And so, that was a great experience. I'll never forget going in to tell Coach Sutton that I was going to take that job. He said, "You belong in college athletics, and this is the dumbest decision a smart person ever made." And he's right. I shouldn't have been able to get back into college athletics. That should have probably segue. But for me, growing up in a small town, I always thought if I wound up one day as a principal and athletic director, maybe eventually a school superintendent, that was the path I was thinking about. And so I just saw it as a chance to fast forward on that path. I didn't really think about the prospects of college athletics. So that was a great experience. I went back to my hometown to do that. And so here I am, a principal, having to evaluate classroom teachers twice a year when they knew, not only did they know that I hadn't really taught in the classroom a lot. I did some adjunct professor work at Oklahoma State when I was there. They also, I was 26. Some of these teachers had taught me, 8-9 years before. And so, and now I'm sitting there evaluating them on something that they know full well that they probably have more experience than me. So it was a great opportunity to grow up in a hurry. It was a great opportunity to learn how to communicate to people when really deep down inside you're very much intimidated. So as I would get other opportunities later, at young ages, people always would want to talk about, aren't you kind of young for the job, or, and how does it feel to have all of your employees that are older than you, and those kind of comments. But the reality is, right out of the gate, that opportunity back home was probably as intimidating of one as you could ever put in front of me. And so after that, everything seemed easy.
Yeah, and so you have that very unique experience. And I want to stay with that for a second. When you're now overseeing people that were teaching you, was it hard for you to maybe command respect? Was it hard for you to establish leadership? What did you learn about yourself? Because it's a test at any point to be a leader and to be the head of something, be a principal, be an athletics director, be a CEO, president, whatever it may be. When you have the opportunity to do that, especially you at 26, with people that were teaching you and saw you grow up and they knew you in the community, how did that challenge you, and how did that kind of maybe bring out the best in you?
Well, I think what those situations do is, force you to, one, be uncomfortable. And I think anytime you're uncomfortable, there's growth that occurs there, in any facet in life. But two, I think I was just bound and determined to show people that my heart was in the right place, that I was genuine and authentic, that I was going to outwork people, and that I really cared about the kids in our school and helping develop them. It's interesting because of my age, and there were some internal candidates when I got hired for that job. The board actually voted 3-2, you never. It's not ideal to enter a job with a split board, but at the end of that first year, they had extended me 5-0. Now I ended up getting a chance to go start the athletic programs at Rogers State. But I do feel like I learned and grew enough during that time to gain the confidence of the leadership there at the school. And, when you're in your hometown, especially a small town like I'm from, your reputation there means a lot. I felt like I went in there and worked hard, and I won't say it was mistake free, but I think people, when I left there, felt like I made things better. I worked really hard, and I did the right thing, even if they didn't always agree with it.
That coming from Wren Baker, VP and Director of Athletics at the University of North Texas. From there, after moving on from 2006 to 2011, you were the first ever athletic director at Rogers State in Claremont, Oklahoma, and you also were the first men's basketball coach there. You have a lot of firsts, Ren, when we're looking at this, historical moments that you were the precedent. You were the inaugural coach. You were the inaugural athletics director. You started something as opposed to taking something that was already there. What does that mean to you overall as kind of a life's journey for you, that you've been a torch bearer instead of someone who's being passed the torch? You're the one that's kind of lighting the torch and then carrying it for the first time. What has that been like for you throughout your tenure as an individual in athletics? And then at the same time, what do you remember from Rogers State?
In terms of what does it mean? I think it means more now, reflecting back, than it did at the time. To be completely candid, I probably was too naive and inexperienced to realize how in over my head I might have been. I was very fortunate to have a great support system around me there at Rogers State. The president that hired me there was a very, very good leader, really cared about developing people, very supportive. Then I was able to build a team around me of people that were really, really good. And a lot of those people have went on to have very successful careers. Some are still there at Rogers State, but many have moved on to have some great careers at other places. And so, I think you look back and you realize just how many people were a part of the successes that you had, and you're grateful that the combination of God and fate brought those people into your life to allow you to have some success. I think the opportunity at Rogers State, as I mentioned, and I've reflected back over the years, by being the first person there and actually starting all the sports program and recruiting all of the support staff and trainers and SIDs and all of those folks, and then also recruiting all the coaches, people come in believing in the vision, believing in me as a leader, believing in where we were trying to go. And I probably didn't realize how much that got us off to a great start. I mean, I think when I left there, we had about a 70% winning percentage. And then I went to Northwest Missouri State, which is a great Division II program, and people are not near as receptive to some of my ideas, but that's because they had already been winning at a high level, and I was the new kid on the block. And so I probably wasn't in real time as understanding of what an advantage it was to bring people in. And conversely, we could be really aggressive at Rogers State because there was no expectations, because no one had ever done it before. And so we could live on the edge a little bit, not be afraid of offending tradition, not be worried about how we've always done it, because nobody had ever done it that way or done it at all. And so, I think looking back, it was a real advantage for me. And then the last thing it really helped me do was understand how all the pieces of an athletic program fit together. I understood compliance very well because we went from 0 people in compliance to 1, and we went from NAIA to start to transition to Division II while I was there. And I understood finance and budgeting because I built every budget from 0. And so all of those were great opportunities, but probably the thing that's helped me most as an AD was that experience coaching, because head coaches sometimes can be a lot to manage, but I understand that because I was one, and so I know kind of how tunnel vision they are, how focused on the outcomes for their program they are, and so I've never been one to get real frustrated with the way that head coaches are. I think that's something a lot of administrators struggle with. But I just think back to how I thought about things and how I processed things when I coached. And it was much different, even though I was a coach and AD at the time. It was much different when I was just an AD than when I was also coaching.
That coming here from Wren Baker, VP and Director of Athletics at the University of North Texas on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Cafe Kubal studios. I'm so honored, Wren, as I'm sitting here listening to you, the incredible history that you've had and the journey that has taken you to this conversation that we're having today, as, North Texas is going to be moving into a new chapter here very soon. But before we get to that, you had the opportunity to be at Memphis around 2013 to 2015, when they were transitioning into the American Athletic Conference. The irony of being at the University of Memphis when they were becoming an American Athletic Conference team, and now being at North Texas when you're becoming an American Athletic Conference team. What can you say about those parallels, and what did you think about the American Athletic back when you were at Memphis?
Well, even taking a step back to when I interviewed for this job, the turnaround that we had at Memphis specifically with the football program was certainly a discussion point. And, I talked about alignment earlier, and that certainly was something that had come together at Memphis at the time. Just great alignment and a vision for making the program comprehensively great, as opposed to just being great in men's basketball. And so, and then as they were transitioning into the American, it was a lot of peaks and valleys, because we were at that time headed into the Big East, and then that kind of fell apart. We were looking at one revenue model, and then we had another model to look at, and Commissioner Resco's done a great job of putting the league together, branding the league, having success. All the members have done a great job of building success and then building back up the revenue, because we had a few years there where the revenue off of television was not much. And so, I think all of those lessons and that familiarity with the league, well before we were looking at the opportunity to come into the league. But when I came in here to talk about how we build this program the right way, that experience was definitely mentioned both directly, but also woven indirectly into a lot of the talking points that I had on we would turn our program around and start to have more success. And so it's surreal for me a little bit, and I'm excited to get a chance to be back in the American again, because I really enjoyed the league the first time around, and it'll be fun just to now get a chance to take a program into the league.
Yeah, and being a part of that back in Memphis, this is a very important question, Wren, so I want you to think about this. You're in the state of Texas now. You were in Tennessee and Memphis. Who has the best barbecue and why?
That it is a great question. And I also was twice lived in the state of Missouri, so Kansas City would definitely want to have a point to make in this conversation as well. I think what I would tell you is I probably lean towards Texas barbecue, but only because I'm more of a beef barbecue guy than pork. And so if I was going to eat pork barbecue, it would definitely be Memphis. But Texas kind of specializes in beef barbecue, and so I probably lean a little bit towards Texas. And it doesn't hurt that that's the state in which my paycheck currently comes from, too.
And for those that haven't been to Denton, Texas, what can you tell us about the area of Texas you're in? Such a giant state, so many different pieces. I mean, basically, to be in the state of Texas, there's so many pieces of the pie, and there's so many schools that are looking to advance themselves and elevate themselves. What can you tell us about Denton, Texas, where the University of North Texas is located?
Well, let's first just talk about geographically where it is. Now it's pretty much halfway between Dallas and Fort Worth, and a little bit north. So if you were to draw a triangle that included Dallas and Fort Worth and Denton, it would be almost a perfect triangle. It has all of the advantages of both of those cities in the entire metroplex. You can get about anywhere in 45 minutes or so, but yet we have our own sense of identity, and Denton has the traditional town square that you think of when you think of small Texas towns, yet we're sitting here rapidly growing towards a couple 100,000 just in Denton. Everybody listening knows that Texas is one of the most rapidly growing states, but this area of Texas is the hottest area in the entire United States. This corridor that is between Dallas and Fort Worth, extending up north to the Oklahoma border, is some of the fastest growing areas in the entire country. There's cranes everywhere. There's a building boom. There's highways being built, but yet here in Denton, it still feels like a small town, and you still see a lot of the same people, and you still have that town square feel where a lot of people hang out. We have two universities here. We have, of course, the University of North Texas, which we sit here with about 43,000 students. And then we also have Texas Women's University, which is the largest university that is specifically geared towards educating females in the United States. And I think they're at about 13 or 14,000 students. So between the two, there's in excess of 50, almost 60,000 students. And so there's a lot of youth and energy and just that entire vibe going on here in Denton, and people will really enjoy the restaurants, the music scene, the entertainment scene, and then if they do want to, get over to see anything that's in Dallas-Fort Worth, they'll have the ability to do that very easily. Yeah,
and it's a great description of that, and I appreciate that. You have made me excited for music, hungry for food. And, I'm sitting here right now, and at the time that we're talking about this, our weather is totally different. And I'm just wondering, Wren, why I haven't been officially invited to the University of North Texas, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, consider this your invitation. We would love to have you down, and, it's the weather here is great. It gets hot in the summer, but as somebody who's lived, I had 2.5 years in Northwest Missouri, which actually gets closer to Omaha weather than Kansas City weather. And for those that may not know, Omaha is kind of quietly one of the coldest major cities in the United States. And so I would rather be hot in the summer than freezing cold in the winter. So, we'd love to have you here. The weather's beautiful most of the year. We may have a snow every 4 to 5 years, but it's pretty rare. And, there's lots of lakes and water parks and all kinds of things like that to do. So we definitely are looking forward to having people down.
Coming from Wren Baker. Wren, before I let you go, you brought up Missouri. Your time there around 2015, takeaways from being at Missouri, knowing the prominence that they have in collegiate athletics right before you ended up coming in and taking the job at the University of North Texas. What can you say that last moment was for you before you stepped into North Texas?
Well, it was a pleasure to be at Missouri and in the SEC, first of all. And I got a chance to work with Mac Rhodes, who's one of my best friends and mentors, and, somebody who's really kind of quietly and in a low-key way established himself as one of the best ADs in the country, in my opinion. So it was a great opportunity. The University of Missouri is known for producing a lot of athletic administrators and specifically athletic directors. I don't know that there's been any institution that's had more people leaving that institution to be an AD than anywhere. And so it was really good to go through there and see what all the different ADs who had been there and sat in those chairs before I was there, all the different decisions they'd made and the growth and progress. But I think specifically relative to this job, it was just good for me to have been in Division II and then at Memphis and then at Missouri and then coming in to UNT to have a chance to see what people do with the resources scaled to different levels and different budgets. And so I was able to come in and say, hey, we don't have, a Power 5 budget, but here's some things we can do that provides a Power 5 experience or Autonomy 5. So now as we look at being a member of the Power 6, I plan to continue to use those lessons and really that perspective. But it definitely was a chance for me to see what you can get with an SEC TV contract, what we were able to do at Memphis, and then come here to North Texas and scale everything in a way where we got the most efficiency and the most bang for a buck, and I think the results have been really good.
Do you believe in the Power 6 narrative? I mean, having been a part of the Power 5, having been outside of that in the quote-unquote group of 5, do you believe there is a Power 6? And what Commissioner Mike Oresco of the American Athletic Conference, speaking on Power 6, which is a media term, speaking on Autonomous 6, which is a legislative term, the autonomy group, do you believe that the American Athletic Conference is making the right case for Power 6, making a justifiable case for Power 6, and do you believe that there could be autonomy for the American Athletic Conference? I know they're two different things because one's media and one's legislative, like I mentioned, but do you believe Power 6, Autonomy 6 is a real thing that has justification in facts as you step into the American Athletic Conference?
I do. I mean, I think the American Conference has proven through repeated results and metrics to be competitive on any given year with those other 5 conferences. And from the media perspective, the Power Six branding, I support it. If I did, Mike might revoke our invitation, but I think it's earned. I think early on, Mike and others probably spoke it into existence, but they've since backed it up. And I don't think when you look at the results, even including this year, they speak for themselves. In terms of the actual legislative part and the way that the CFP could potentially be structured, I don't believe we should have any system in place that makes it inherently impossible for some teams to participate in the postseason. I think at this point in time, we should be about giving opportunities to young people who've earned it and earned it on the field or on the court or through competition. And so any designation or system that just makes it inherently unfair, if not impossible, for over half of the membership to participate in a postseason opportunity for a championship, to me, that's not right. And so I do think as we go through, with the Constitution rewrite and then ultimately the bylaws that'll be rewritten for Division I and FBS, and then the CFP restructuring, I think we ought to do that with providing opportunities to young people, regardless of how big their television contract is, should be at the forefront of those conversations.
And I think that was such a well-put answer, and I appreciate that you gave some layers to that lasagna, to really speak about what this could mean as we step forward in the future, because, I've spoken with Mike Oresco, the commissioner of the American Athletic Conference, like I said, from the institution of the conference, and even before, and all he speaks are facts, and what I'm confused by is, why a Cincinnati, why a UCF of a couple of years ago had to, they go 25-0, they lose their first game, and people are like, well, see, that's why they're out, and why the college football playoff comes out, with rankings this year, and we see that Cincinnati, who's 2 in the AP and 2 in the coaches poll, is 6th in the college football playoff. And that would never happen to Alabama. That would never happen to Georgia. Wouldn't happen to LSU. Wouldn't happen to Clemson. Wouldn't happen to Ohio State. So, I think that there's logic, and then there's kind of this, country club that it feels like some people aren't invited to. Do you feel that the college football playoff has to essentially then be expanded to the 12 that maybe we're talking about here, so the American has a fighting chance? I mean, are we living in a world where expansion is the only answer?
Unfortunately, I think we are, because outside of expansion, there's just no way that those conferences that are higher resourced are going to give up an advantage. And, people can point to strength of schedule and say, well, this is such a fair metric. But the reality is, when you have higher resources as a whole in your conference, you're buying all of these non-conference games. And not only are you getting the benefit of home field advantage when you have more resources, but you're also very often picking opponents that you match up well against them in terms of your strengths and their strengths. And while that's not, sometimes, there's outliers because scheduling's done so far in advance. Generally speaking, that's what people are doing. So when you aggregate all of the non-conference games across the conferences, even though an individual team like Cincinnati may be winning all of their games, they're weighted down by conference opponents who didn't fare as well in the non-conference, because as a whole, the system disadvantages them. And so I think the only way to fix that is going to be to go with the expanded playoff and a certain number of conference champions that goes beyond 5 being involved in that. And I think and I'm hopeful that we're going to get to a system that provides that opportunity. We need to get away from a system where over half of the 130 FBS members have no realistic path into the playoff for a championship.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly. I've jokingly but seriously said that the college football playoff every year is Alabama, usually Clemson, another SEC school, and then either the Pac-12 or the Big Ten, and sometimes the Big 12. So, there's not enough space for everybody. It doesn't adequately represent America and what college football is. And so I think it needs to change. But before I let you go here with Wren Baker, a VP and Director of Athletics for the University of North Texas, and our time together's flown by because there's so much to talk about, Wren. I'm going to have you back on the show. It's fitting we talked about barbecue because I feel like our conversation has been like one of the platters, and I feel like we've only gotten to the ribs and not even the pork, but there's still the beans and the cornbread and the corn. So we definitely will have to continue it. But before I let you go, why do you think the American wanted North Texas? What was the conversation like with Mike Oresco? What made you feel like North Texas was a desired school to come to the American Athletic Conference? What was kind of the selling point that you had, and why do you think the American bought it?
Well, I think more than anything else, it was that we had experienced success across several sports. And our football program the last couple of years hasn't been what we'd like for it to be. We had in 17 and 18 back-to-back 9-win seasons, and then we've struggled a little bit since then. But, I think when I would speak to Mike and others in the conference ADs and when my presidents would speak with presidents, I think people looked at the success we've had across our sports. They looked at a very rapidly emerging academic profile. We're a Carnegie Tier 1 research institution, but we're one of only 18 that's designated as both a minority serving institution and a Hispanic serving institution. And so, we're a diverse community that also prides ourselves on both access and excellence. So I think that factored in. And then, the last thing is really over the past 5 years, we've been benchmarking the American as much as we benchmarked Conference USA, even though we were members of Conference USA. And so when you look at what we pay our coaches, what we pay our support staff, what we pay our assistant coaches, we look like an American institution. And that's one of the things that Mike said in our conversation is, candidly, you're one of the schools and one of a few that's not promising the investment you will make. You have demonstrated that you're going to make the investment. And so I think that gives Mike some comfort. And it probably doesn't help that we're down the road from headquarters here and in the number 5 DMA in the country. Those probably were positive attributes we had as well. But for whatever the reasons were, we're certainly very, very glad that we have the opportunity, and it's something I can tell you our fan base, our student athletes, our coaches is very excited about.
Yeah, and I think it's incredible to have this kind of quick hitters toward the conclusion of our conversation, Wren. I know that as a VP and a Director of Athletics, these all can kind of branch out into major conversations. But as you've dealt in the last 18 months and some change with the pandemic, within the pandemic, name, image, and likeness, within that, the transfer portal, within that, realignment, how have you as a leader navigated name, image, and likeness, which is unprecedented, the pandemic, which is unprecedented, the transfer portal and college football and really college athletic free agency, which is unprecedented, and, realignment, which was precedent, has preceded us, but, is happening again. With all of these new things, plus the threat of realignment that Oklahoma and Texas, just 2 schools out of 130 when it comes to college football, Division 1A FBS, that all they had to do was make a move, and that earthquake was felt around the country. When we see all of these things going on, how do you handle that as a leader at North Texas, knowing that 3 out of those 4 things, like I said, had never happened before, and the one thing that had happened before causes such a disruption to the world of college sports?
Yeah, I think the one in college athletics you have to remember is the only thing that changes is everything changes. And so you have to be malleable. You have to listen. You have to listen with the intent to learn, and then rely on the people around you, both our staff here, but also the network of professionals that's around the conference and the country, to learn as much as you can. And that's probably one of the areas where I've changed the most, going back to, we talked earlier about Roger State, is learning that I don't need to be and shouldn't be the expert in everything. I don't have to do everything. I can rely on people who are more talented than I am in certain areas, that have more experience, more understanding, more knowledge. And then, and to listen, like on name, image, and likeness, to listen to our student athletes, let them tell us what we can do to educate and support them in those endeavors. So, I really think it's just being focused on understanding that no 2 days are going to be alike. You have to be malleable. You have to listen and to lean on other people to put together the best solution to any issues that come at you.
Yeah, and I think that, as you step forward, like you said, if any, when it comes to collegiate athletics, the reality is that everything changes, and that's the truth. There is always kind of it's like weather. It could be sunny or there could be hail. And I think that we've had to kind of navigate and understand that to the best of our ability, and maybe having a bunch of things happen at the same time after things had already happened a couple of years ago, it kind of creates this ability to live in a controlled chaos, so to speak, because it's not out of the realm of possibility that things are a little bit crazy. But I do want to say this before I let you go, because God is awesome and God is good. And last season, you went up against Purdue of the Big Ten, and North Texas won their first men's basketball NCAA tournament game in 2021 when you faced off against them 78-69 in overtime. And watching that game with you being out there as a 13 seed up against a 4-seeded Purdue, I just think it's cool that I watch these games and I think, wow, that's incredible. And now a few months later, I get to actually talk to the VP and Director of Athletics at North Texas to officially say, congratulations on making March Madness ever so mad and ever so crazy. And I love when moments like this happen. So I'm happy that I finally get to say to you, congratulations on that.
Well, thank you very much. That was one of the highlights for sure of my time here, and really probably my career as a whole. Just to partly because the year before that team won the conference championship regular season, and what was going to be a favorite, was the 1 seed, was a favorite to win the conference tournament, and then COVID shut everything down. And I remember going into their locker room right after that announcement come out. They were over practicing at the Coliseum, and they were distraught and devastated. And so to see them get to come back, and we had a chance to win the league regular season again, and lost 2 games at home to UAB to end the year. That ended up actually, not only did we not win the league, but it forced us to not even get a bye in the first round, which makes it next to impossible to win the conference tournament. But these guys wouldn't be they would not be denied. So they ran through Murder's Row in the conference tournament, won the conference tournament, and drew that seed against the local favorite, and a team that had all kinds of size. If you follow Big Ten basketball, specifically Purdue, I mean, they were a huge team in terms of just physical physically imposing, and we played just outstanding basketball to beat them, and it was one of those moments in the tournament that everybody remembers and everybody loves. And Javion Hamlin, our point guard, his dad was the one in the stands with the iPad filming all of the game. But I walked back from the arena to the hotel with next to him, and he might have been the biggest celebrity in town. People were coming off the street saying, "I just saw you on TV," and congrats to your son. And so those moments are special. And coming off of COVID, that was particularly special for our fan base.
Yeah, and you've been a part overall in your career as an athletic director with almost 20 head coaching searches, and your coaches have won around 70% of their games. So let me ask you this, Wren, in closing. How are you the head coach whisperer? Because to find somebody that wins more than 70% or more than 50% of their games is a positive, but head coaching vacancies and searches can be very nerve-wracking, and you know it. You're going to take a swing, and you might whiff, you might hit a home run, you might get on base, you might end up bunting the ball and hoping that you can outrun the pitcher. So when you're going for these head coaching searches, just what maybe some of your, don't give away all your secrets, obviously, I don't want you to do that, but what some of the key things are that you look for, because you've had so much success in finding a head coach. And I know it from almost 20 years of being a broadcaster and being in this business. It's very, very difficult to find the right head coach, yet you've been able to have a lot of success in doing that.
Yeah, it's probably over the last few years, as people have trended to want to hire external ADs and fundraisers and stuff, which I have a lot of that in my background. But I've always said, like, the most important thing, number one quality in an AD is their ability to be able to hire quality people, and specifically head coaches. It's a lot easier to market and fundraise for winning programs than it is for programs that aren't. I think in terms of keys is I think every one of them, I feel an enormous amount of pressure, and I do not ever, no matter how many successful head coaching hires that you might make, I don't think anybody can ever feel confident. There's so many elements and so many things that factor in to whether the coach is a success and perceived to be successful. And so when we have one, I clear the calendar, I focus on that and only that, and I devote 10, 12, 14 hours a day until I'm comfortable that we're making the best decision, knowing that there is no perfect decision, but that we're making the best decision. And I think the other thing that I've always tried to do is if we're going to have a new coach come in, we're going to find the money to hit reset to give them all of the bullets that they need to go into battle. And I think too often we hire people and we expect better results for less. We're looking to cut budget. We're looking to save money. Those are some of the financial realities we deal with sometimes. But the reality is if you really want to ensure somebody has success, do a thorough assessment of what your resources and strengths look like relative to your competition, and then bring somebody in and equip them with what they need to compete. And that's always been the formula that we've used. And I will say that we haven't had you take men's basketball, it looks great now, but year 2, year 3 was a little bit especially year 2, I think Coach McCaslin started off 13-0 and then ended up losing like 8-9, and people were moaning and groaning, and nobody thought that we had hit a home run during that moment in time. But I always had confidence in him because I knew the way that he did it, he was doing things was the right way. He had a plan. He was executing the plan, and we were resourcing him with the bullets that he needed to go into battle. And ultimately, he's been a smashing success for us, and we're very fortunate that we've been able to keep him here. So I think that's the formula, and I say that knowing full well that there is no guarantee, and that even the greats, Jeremy Foley, Joe Castiglione, I mean, they have they may have got most of the hires right, but no one gets them. No one escapes this life without this career without getting one or two wrong along the ways. And I'm just always doing whatever I can to make sure that the next one's not one that we get wrong.
That coming here from Wren Baker, VP and Director of Athletics at the University of North Texas for the Mean Green, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Wren, it has been my honor and my privilege to have you on the show today. I loved being on the live video conference on my birthday on October 21st when the announcement was made. You were all smiles. You looked very excited and very happy to be a part of it. And I got to tell you, you just look like a big kid that was, that got some good news and was looking forward to the opportunity. So I want to say you made a great first impression. I'm so very honored that you spent so much time here with me on the show today, and I would love the opportunity to have you back on the show. And I do very much mean that I would love to come down to the University of North Texas and get to see you face to face and get to take a tour of the campus as well.
We'd love to have you, and we look forward to doing it. And I'll come on with you anytime. And I appreciate you having me and all of the incoming schools on the program. I'm listening to all of them so I can make sure that I'm taking notes on what they're doing, and we're doing something as good or better.